In this little commercial that's called homes.com is the best. But I love the commercial because it's so funny because, in advertising, you can't put out false information. And so to say that some company is the best is like, okay, where'd you get that information from? Was there a survey done or what have you? If you haven't gotten the data that proves that, then in advertising, you can't necessarily say those kind of things. But there is a thing called competitive advantage that some companies have over another. So when you see advertising, they may mention, nowadays they boldly mention another brand's name, whereas before it was taboo to mention another brand's name. But now they will mention another brand's name when they're advertising. And it's all because every company wants to show what their competitive advantage is over another. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Come on into the room. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to Marketing Adventure, the hub for business, fashion, marketing, and other CTE educators who integrate marketing into the learning experience. I'm your host, Jackie Walker. Each week, I'll cover marketing education concepts, strategies, tips, trends, frameworks, and other information to equip you to connect your classroom to digital natives while cultivating an engaged learning environment. So come on into the room where your favorite beverage, snacks, and even your cell phone are all welcome.
Now, when I was teaching, I would have my entrepreneurship students and my students that were doing like the advertising campaign and maybe even some other projects always list at least 2 to 3 competitors in their project. And they would have to do what is called a competitive advantage profile. So that's what we're going to talk about. The competitive advantage profile and what that consists of. So first of all, generally you would create this in a chart format so that you could have all of those different characteristics lined up on the table and each company in their own column so that you can then write out those characteristics for each company and compare them. That is comparing the advantages that one company has over another. So let's talk about what some of those characteristics may be. So when you're looking at your brand or your company against a competitor, some of the things that you may compare, first of all, you want to identify what the product or the service is. So the product or services may not be exactly the same, but they could be, direct competitors or maybe a little bit of an indirect competitor to what you're selling. But you want to list out what is that product or service? What is that? If it's a group of products or services, the category or what have you, you will list that out. And then you want to talk about the quality. What quality does your product have, and then what is the quality of the others. In this event, you may be listing the type of materials used, the process of making the product. Maybe there's a more detailed process. Maybe there's just a method that improves the sturdiness of the product. So you want to list out what that process is or that product is that helps with the quality of the product. Then you want to mention the pricing. And so pricing is important because that is one of the things that are competitive compared to the other companies that are creating things in the same lane that you're operating in. So pricing is a key component of listing out on that competitive advantage profile. Now, another thing that you can look at is the depth of the offerings that your competitors have against what you offer. Is it that you may offer a whole collection with 5, 6, 7 different colors, maybe various sizes, whereas maybe your competitor only has 2 colors. Maybe they have only limited sizes. They don't offer into the plus sizes or maybe even into the petite sizes. So those are things that you're going to mention as a part of that competitive advantage profile as well. Now, also to consider as one of those characteristics of comparing your company or brand to another competitor is the offerings as far as where can they be accessed. Does your competitor only offer online, or do they have a retail store as well? How many retail stores do they have? So those access points for the consumer to actually purchase. So that is another thing to consider when you're looking at the competitive advantage profile, is how many ways does the consumer have to access the product or services that are being offered, and how many locations are available. So that expands, that helps with the competitive advantage. If you have, the more locations you have, the more access people have to you, the more you can sell. Another thing to add to the profile is ways to pay. Do your competitors only accept cash? Do they accept credit? Do they offer, nowadays when you shop online, they can use Affirm and those other methods in which allows them to break their payments up into um, partial payments, similar to the way layaway was. However, layaway back in the day only allowed you to put your stuff in layaway, which is kept at the company until you were able to pay it off. Nowadays, layaway is you accessing your product or service immediately and then paying it off in payments through some type of payment service. So, do your competitors offer various ways in which the consumer can pay for their goods? Do you offer various ways? So those are some things that are now are a determining factor for consumers when they're making their purchases. And lastly, how will the consumer receive the product? So now that they've made the purchase, especially if they purchased online, will they receive it immediately? Is it something that can be delivered same day, or how many days does it take? We all know that the big A company out there has a membership that if you sign up for their membership, you can get your products same day or within a very short period of time. Otherwise, you will have to wait the standard delivery time. So that is another thing that you can look at as far as your competitors are concerned. Do they offer, what ways do they offer for their consumers to receive their products? And nowadays there's also this U company out there that instead of driving people around and taking them to places, they also deliver food, groceries, and all of those other things. So delivery of merchandise or services is another key thing that you would add to that competitive advantage profile when you're comparing your company to other competitors. Another part to developing a competitive advantage profile, other than those qualities that we were listing out in that table, is to actually develop a SWOT analysis for your company. And you may say, Jackie, what is a SWOT analysis? I'm glad you asked. It is the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that your company faces as they try to develop their footprint within a particular market. So let's break those down. Okay, let's start with the S. These are the strengths. So you will list out, and this is not something that you're comparing yourself to others with, but as a company, so you've already got that competitive advantage profile where you have the list, the table where it's you and two or three other competitors that you're listing in that table, and you're comparing those qualities that I mentioned before. This is now an individual um, drawing that you would do for your company or your brand. So you're going to list out, and this is the way that normally I would have my students to do it. I would say get a piece of paper and fold the paper in half. So they fold it in half. And then you're going to open it back up, and then you're going to fold it in half horizontally. So they're going to fold it vertically, first of all, and then they're going to fold it horizontally. And when they open it back up, they will have a T chart of some sort. Some people call it, squares or whatever they may call it. However, there's going to be 4 different squares. So you're going to put strengths in one, you're going to put weaknesses in another, opportunities in one, and then you'll put threats in the other. So when we're looking at a brand or a company as a total picture, we want to consider all those four characteristics. And especially when we're talking about developing our advertising campaign, we're going to talk about the strengths of the company. What is their strength? Are they the best at what they do? What makes them the best? So you're going to look at, maybe they have their own manufacturing company. That's a strength. They don't have to rely on a third party company to create their products. Maybe they're located in certain areas that are key to accessing their target market. So just look at, what are those things that make them the best in their particular class, so that they will have the upper hand above their competitors. It could be that they just have a workforce that is dedicated to their job and have been there for years, so they don't have to worry about training new people all the time or what have you. So those are just some things to look at as far as strength. Weaknesses. What can be a weakness of a company? It could be that they're a new company and they just don't have much experience. It could be that the products are new and they don't really know how they're going to be received by the marketplace. It could be maybe they have limited products. Maybe they're only able to offer one particular thing right now, whereas their competitors may have a whole line of items. So those are things that you would look at as far as what the weaknesses are. And it could be maybe they just don't have much money for startup. So these are all considered barriers to their entry into the marketplace. And that could present a bit of a problem for them, trying to be competitive. Okay, so those are your weaknesses. Opportunities. So when you look at a company's opportunities that they have, it could be that what they've come up with and what they're offering is just not a lot of companies out there offering it. So there is an opportunity for them to grow within that particular market. There's an opportunity for them to be the first on the scene, or to grab a great share of the market, because there's not a lot of competition there right now. Opportunities could be, if they notice that something is missing in the marketplace, and they say that, oh, we can offer that. Maybe, let's say, for instance, when I was raising my son, he was my first child, a boy, right? When I went to shop for clothes for him, the market was very limited. If it wasn't a striped shirt, then it was a shirt that had something sports related on it, or an animal. And so I just wanted cute clothes for him so that I could dress him up, and I didn't necessarily want him to be wearing stripes and animals all the time. So there was an opportunity for a company to come along and create something that was trendy, cute, that was boy related, and in more colors. And nowadays I see that with clothing for young boys. It's not just stripes, it's not just athletics, it's not just animals. They actually have some very handsome looking clothes, that are more tailored looking, that are more sporty without the athletics on it, that are more attractive, vibrant colors, and things of that nature. So, what opportunities exist in the marketplace for your brand or your company to be successful? How can they move in and swoop in on that market and gain that market share? And lastly, threats. What what barriers exist that will keep you from being successful? Is it finances? Is it that the company just doesn't have the money to create the inventory that's needed to be competitive in this market? What is their materials, potentially materials not being available to you because where they're being produced, there has been some disaster, natural disaster happening, and you don't have access to those materials. Nowadays, it's tariffs. Tariffs are a threat to a lot of businesses, and a lot of small businesses are going to suffer because of tariffs, because tariffs are going to cause them to increase their prices so that they can still maintain their profit margin. So that is a big threat to our economy right now. So that's an economic factor. And then just like the dominance of your competitors. So that's a threat to you. If you have competitors that have been out there in that marketplace for an umpteen number of years and you are new, then the threat is that you may not be able to grab the necessary share of the market for you to be successful as a brand or a company. So that would be a threat. So you have your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And these all have to be looked at when a company is doing advertising, an advertising campaign, because you have to hone in definitely on your strengths. You have to not highlight the weaknesses, but use that as something that you could overcome as a part of your advertising, and then really talk about the opportunities that you are taking a hold of in that marketplace, and then maneuver through those threats. How can you advertise to be seen by the market when there is a dominant competitor out there? If prices are going to have to go up because of tariffs, then how can you advertise to show the significance of your brand so that people won't be so focused on the pricing going up? So those are things that have to be considered as a part of the whole advertising campaign profile. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with regard to the competitive advantage is that you have to know your unique value proposition, your UVP. You have to know that, and you have to market that to the market, to your target market. You have to put that in your advertising, because what you offer uniquely to the market is going to be the thing that brings the customers to you. It's going to be the thing that when someone is considering you or your competitor, your unique value proposition could be that one thing that tips them over the edge to come to you. So it is what makes you different from everyone else. It's what makes your product stand out from anything else. It's what says that you are the brand that we should shop with. What is that unique value proposition that you offer? And that is something that a company has to develop. That is something that they have to market. That is something that they have to have through all of their advertising campaign, is the unique value that you have against the marketplace. And that creates the total picture of your competitive advantage profile. Those characteristics those traits that you have identified in the beginning, that you've compared yourself to the other competitors, your SWOT analysis, and your unique value proposition. Well, that sums up the competitive advantage profile. I hope this has been a great lesson for you and your students, and I hope you really gained some information from it. I do invite you to come back next time when we're going to talk about advertising media, and that's going to go into the details of the media you use for an advertising campaign. I do thank you for joining me here at Marketing Adventure with Jackie, and I hope that you have a wonderfully blessed day.
Thanks for listening to Marketing Adventure. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode with someone you think would benefit from the information shared here today. If you have any questions or want to connect with me, find me on Instagram at Marketing Adventure. All links and resources discussed in this episode can be found in the show notes at marketingadventure.com.